that wait, we're live. Hello, everyone, and hello to all the people who are in our little waiting room. I'm going to mute that so that I don't talk to myself. And it looks like, yeah, it's working. Okay, great. Let me introduce everybody. I have a podcast, but mostly I'm known for making YouTube videos and also for making VidCon. Here, Monica Gasper, who has been working for VidCon since VidCon existed. So it's probably at this point VidCon's oldest employee, right? Not
I think so.
Like age of you.
No, I'm
But
definitely not the oldest in age.
Okay. We also have Joseph Fink, who is one of the creators and writers of Welcome to Night Vale and also of Alice Isn't Dead. And we have Jeffrey Craner, who is also a Night Valian. And hello. Travis McElroy, theoretically, will also be joining us, but we don't know. And we were also trying to have Travis from VidCon/pod. The link isn't working for him, and we don't know why. So that's not a problem we can solve.
The link wasn't working for me until you guys came on. It was giving me an error.
Oh, okay. So. Well, okay. Tell him to try again.
Maybe Travis should try again.
Before we arrived, people were talking about their favorite podcasts and what they were super into these days, which is good. And I encourage people to continue because I'm doing my best to keep up. Does it seem to you guys like the world of podcasting is changing extremely fast, and that there are like 8 new good podcasts every day?
Yeah, I mean, what's happened here is ever since a few podcasts blew up and made it apparent that you could make money doing podcasts, and so in the last 2 years or so, a tremendous amount of money and talent has poured into podcasting. People are hiring left and right. So every media organization you can think of is making a podcast. So there's a lot of new ones every week.
And then even people
I kind of have a hard time. Oh, you go, Jeffrey.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I thought I was muted. No, I was just gonna say, and also just the number of people, like independent people, that realize you just need a good microphone in a quiet room, and you say something like "my favorite murder." Two people can meet at a party and be like, "I like this topic too. Let's sit in front of mics and record it and put it on the internet." But yeah, it's just a lot more people aware of podcasting as well to find those things.
I mean, I have a hard time realizing that I have been making a podcast for 2 years. It seems like way less time than that for me, but we just started this episode and we do them every week, so that's 2 years. And like the fact that like when we started 2 years ago, we were very late to the game, and it was already too late to be starting a podcast. But now there are still lots of people starting podcasts.
It's never too late.
It's never too late. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the funny thing is that was my thought when we started doing Night Vale as well in 2012. Was wow, we're coming really late to podcasting. That's too bad. We're too late for anyone to notice us, but still, this will be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean that might be an interesting thing to talk about, like get people from sort of different eras of podcasting and be like, what were your first 6 months like? Like how did you feel when you started it? How did you feel on sort of like, week 2 and like month 2 and like 6 months in? How, like, did you feel like this was a thing that was going to just be fun, or were you trying to make it work? And how were you making it work? Like you have somebody who's been doing it for 6 months and somebody who's been doing it for 6 years, but sort of like have a consistency of topic throughout that.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about to think back to like where like how I was feeling 6 months into Welcome to Night Vale, because at that point we had some listenership, but it wasn't an enormously popular thing in like December of 2012. But yeah, it was I at least for me, I remember thinking about that idea of wow, we've created, like, just like what you were saying, Hank, like 2 years in, I've got 100 episodes. We wrote we had 12 episodes in. We had over 6 hours worth of content. I had written, it helped write 6 hours worth of storytelling in 6 months, which was really amazing.
Yeah,
feel productive.
basically books worth of content. And now you've written actual books worth of content.
Well, I mean, I did the math because we do this math occasionally. Just it's an interesting math to do. But let's say with the double episodes, we've done about 115. Let's say 120. I think is probably closer. Times about 2,400 words. So we've written almost 300,000 words of just the podcast scripts. At this point.
You know, the number I don't want to know is how many words of tweets I've written.
It might be over 1,000.
Yeah. Oh God. And
okay. So
people. So we've got a defender of the new LeVar Burton podcast, which I haven't checked out yet. Crusading in the chat, being like, "Do you guys know about this?" I don't know about it. I mean, I know that it exists.
I mean, I assume
I see the chat. Is that just for you, or is there a way for me to look at it?
Oh, the chat. It's no. It's you've got to open the page where people are watching.
Oh,
I can send it to you guys. That's why. Let me send it to you.
Oh, I see the group chat, but that looks internal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I sent you the thing. Make sure you have your things muted when you click on it, because then otherwise you will hear.
Yeah. So Travis Morse is here. He's our content manager.
Hi, Travis.
Hey.
Hey, Travis McElroy.
Hey, also Travis McElroy is here.
Hey, sorry for my tardiness.
It's okay. You have a baby.
Yeah.
I mean, I also have a baby, and I wasn't late, so. But,
well, we're also in the process of buying a house, so I was caught up because we're trying to get our mortgage paperwork done.
Congrats.
Nice.
Hey, thank you. So baby plus mortgage paperwork has made for a slightly hectic morning.
I don't have a baby, but I do have a photo of my wife and I riding horses.
That's pretty good.
So that's similar, I think.
Pretty good.
Everyone, Travis Morse is our he's sitting
content manager.
Content director.
I don't know what the name
director. Are you director now?
Captain Content.
And then Travis McElroy is a McElroy of My Brother and Me, and also many other things. He produces 36 different podcasts, I think is the number. I made it up, but
actively, I think 7.
We can go back to your earlier question, Hank, about have you seen an explosion in podcasting? And since the birth of the McElroy sons, I have, yes, definitely.
Explosion of McElroy podcasts.
Yeah. Too many, I'd say.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's very hard to not start things once you start things. Once you start starting things.
This is true.
One of the things that we want to do at PodCon that I'm really excited about is, so in the vein of this sort of explosion of podcasts, there are lots of different ideas, and people have ideas and they're like, oh, I can't actually do that because I can't do another thing, or this is too dumb. There's no way that there would actually be an audience for this. Or there's just not enough content. So we would like to do, and we've been talking about this behind the scenes, some one-off podcasts that are like, you take one person and another person who maybe have never worked together or who would like each other or who have worked together, and you say like, what is the thing that you guys would have a podcast about if you guys had a podcast? And I was just thinking about wanting to do one on animal sex. And like every time you bring a weird coitus to discuss, so we could just be called Weird Coitus. And I don't know who wants to co-star in Weird Coitus with me. I could just go to our guest list and be like, who are the people who I would want. But suggestions welcome, and it shouldn't just be for the people who are on the call. I want to have.
We have
these other people.
You had mentioned one about like pretending that you're cooking, not actually cooking.
Oh,
I think that came up in one of our calls. Like having a cooking podcast where you're not actually cooking, you're just making it up.
I had an idea for a podcast called The Worst Movie of All Time, where the point of the podcast is to talk about the worst movie of all time, but you never actually get around to talking about that. And you're like, we'll get to it next week. We'll decide what the worst movie is next week. And then you just never actually do it.
See, I think coming up with topics is a little backward. I mean, Hank, it makes sense because you're coming up with for yourself. But what I would love is to pair people up. I mean, in an ideal world, even pair people up randomly, because I personally love using randomness to set up constraints on art. So I would love to even just pair people up randomly and then say, okay, what is the topic that the two of you share an interest in that you'd want to make a podcast on? And also the real benefit here is, unlike every other podcast idea you have, you don't have to know what the second episode would be. You only actually have to have enough material for one episode, which is super freeing.
Yeah. Oh God, I love this. I love this so much. So how do we set up a random podcast generator?
I mean, just assign everybody numbers and then just do a random number generator. You know what I mean? And like 1 and
God
12
damn
are
it,
together.
Travis, it's like it's. I'm frustrated that you were like, this is the obvious answer, and that of course it is. And I thought that it was complicated, and it's very not.
I use a random number generator all the time in my work. I find random number generators super helpful for.
It's honestly because Hank,
up.
you literally said random podcast generator. And I was like, just swap out that middle word.
If you type R in my browser, it automatically adds in random number generator. I'm not joking.
How often do you? What do you do? What do you use a random number generator for? And should we have a workshop on it?
I use it for all sorts of things. I mean, for one thing, what I do, I have about 150 books that I own that I haven't read yet. So lately what I've been doing is I just put all their names in an Excel spreadsheet, and then I use a random number generator to just randomly decide which one I'm going to read next. Because it kind of forces me to not stick with the same kind of book over and over.
I need that for Audible listens because once I start, there's this problem that is indeed for the publishing industry a feature. That if you hit a book series that has like 25 books, like I read the first Harry Bosch novel and then I was like, oh fuck, now I have to read the next 35 Harry Bosch novels because I'm super into this. Yeah. Then you forget that all other kinds of books exist.
Yes.
So.
Okay. Down to business. Can we talk about the new people who have jumped on board since last week?
Yeah, well, first of all, Monica, we've been down to business the whole time.
Okay,
let's give us all credit. But yeah, that is a great idea.
Like,
I scratched weird corners off the agenda.
Okay.
Have we added?
We have added Mike Hurley from Relay FM, Hal Lublin.
Tell me about, was it Meg? Who's Meg from Relay?
Mike.
Oh, Mike.
Yes.
Mike Hurley.
Yes.
Hey, I didn't know that he was coming. Yay.
Yeah. Like you and I had talked about that a couple months ago, and then I finally got back to him last week. Paul Bay is in. Lauren Shippen is in.
The Black Tapes.
Yeah.
Catherine Cole, Ashley Ahern, Drew from Sleep With Me.
Wonderful.
And then
I need to send you, guys, Drew created an audio file that's him pitching things he could do at the convention that is worth listening to. Remind me to send that to you.
That sounds really good. We should include that in our flash drive for people who got the flash drive.
In the flash drive? Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm gonna make that note.
Yeah, so Lauren Shippen of the Bright Sessions, Paul Bay, who is with Pacific Northwest Studios and co-creator of the Black Tapes, who does a lot of stuff. I mostly know Hal's work from Thrilling Adventure Hour and Night Vale, but
also we got this with him and Mike Gagliardi, Tights and Fights on Max Fun. Surprisingly nice, the fundraising podcast with me.
Oh yeah.
He does a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
As well as doing a bunch of voiceover work recently. He's been on the Venture Brothers, and I think the show's called Magic Sword. I can't remember I'm now really feel terrible that I can't remember the name of it. But
Hal is also just one of the single nicest people I have ever met in my life.
Absolutely.
So there's that.
So excited.
Yeah, so this puts us at 42 guests.
That's great.
Great.
Wow. Look at us.
Mm-hmm. Which means we've met our goal, numbers wise.
No more.
We have all the guests.
We have all the guests.
We have a couple more asks out that are in progress that we can't talk about yet because people are. But
were we able to get Barack Obama? After he did that episode of WTF, I figure he's hooked on podcasts now. I don't see why we wouldn't
ask. He's basically a podcaster, right?
Right? Why wouldn't we ask?
All right, I'll reach out.
Thank you.
He's got a great radio voice.
And what's he doing now?
And I mean,
he's just been on vacation for the last couple months.
It was a kite surfing with the Virgin
Bronson
guy? Yeah.
Bronson, yeah.
Kite surfing with the Virgin and then just pause for a long time.
The Virgin, the one.
That sounds good. We should also have the Virgin guy, Richard Bronson, or whatever.
Yeah, I'm sure he has a podcast. That's I'm sure it's out there. Did you see the Mooch has a podcast now?
Oh no.
Oh God! Wow! Why not?
The very first episode, and this is not a joke. I'm 100% serious. The first episode is about cocaine. Cocaine. I'm not joking right now.
What is it called? What is it about? What is the?
I'm going to Apple Podcasts right now.
It's called TMI, although the TMI does not stand for what you think it stands for. He has some bullshit name that acronyms to TMI.
Huh.
Wow.
Like the Mooch Inquisition.
Something like that.
The Mooch Interrupted.
Oh, it's the Motivation Inside with Anthony Scaramucci.
God, that is really bad.
So we're gonna have the Mooch, everyone. He's a confirmed guest.
That's a draw right there.
If we get Paul makes the suggestion that if we get Obama and Richard Branson, then we can have kite surfing with the Virgin guy be the podcast they do together.
Perfect.
I
would actually like a podcast where Obama does theater reviews called Drama, Save It for Obama.
Or he could just review llamas.
Oh, yeah. Or
because
use llamas and call it Llama Drama with Obama.
Yeah.
Perfect.
We have, they do, like at the fair in Montana, they basically do drama, they do llama reviews. Llamas will be there and then they get rated based on how good they are at being llamas.
Mm-hmm. It's like a Goodreads for llamas.
Mm-hmm.
That's
great.
Yeah.
Those
that's
poor
like
llamas
every animal there, though.
Bad reviews.
Yeah.
That makes me so sad for them.
Yeah, for the last place llama.
Need to try harder next time, llama.
Be a better llama.
If you're looking for a PodCon podcast, you're basically on it. People in the chat who are asking for that.
When you think about it, everything is a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've already had several great ideas of kite surfing with the Virgin and llama reviews are both two great podcast ideas people should start right away.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw someone through the chat say good breeds, which I thought was pretty awesome.
Good breeds.
Good breeds.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
Brilliant.
So Jess, Annie Jess, appears to have an idea that I am interested in. I don't actually know what the idea is, but I like should be confessionals at the con, so guests can share after they present. So, like, what is a confessional for the podcaster?
Yeah.
Is it like a couple of deep probing questions with your host Hal Lublin, or is it like here's a thing that I've never told anyone, and I like my first podcast, I started it all because I was trying to get away with murder.
Wait, are you suggesting that we do like a Talking Dead style after show for each of the podcasts that we present?
Just the podcast review of the podcast?
Yeah,
That's
so
really
how do you
good.
think that went?
I really like the part when, and then you follow it up with a Talking Dead of the Talking Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I want to do a podcast that is Talking Dead, and it just episode by episode reviews episodes of Talking Dead.
Well, there was the Gilmore Guys girls, which was that.
Okay.
Whoa.
Podcast of two girls talking about the Gilmore Guys, talking about the Gilmore Girls.
I really like the idea either to do the confessionals for presenters, but I rather like the idea of having a booth for attendees to say like what they learned from, because the one, I would love to know what they take away from it, but also it's really good promotional stuff for future promotional videos and that kind of thing, to have actual attendees let us know what they took away from different events and panels and stuff like that.
That is a good idea.
It might be interesting having, along those lines, something. The technical aspect of this might be tricky, but something that's sort of like the is it StoryCorps that does this, where they just have the booth you can go into and tell a story into a microphone and have it recorded. Having some sort of booth that attendees could go into, and maybe you have up to, I don't know, 15 minutes, up to 20 minutes, something like that, to record a story or a podcast or something. And then there would have to be some sort of screening or something, but then those getting put on some sort of feed that people could listen to.
We talked about doing that for a previous event. And the thing that we ran into was having the manpower to actually go through and listen and edit afterwards.
Yeah.
I still like the idea though.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it then. I like it now.
I assume Joseph, you're volunteering for that job?
Sure, I don't have enough on my plate. Let's have more.
How to do that, I bet, in this chat.
Any volunteers?
Nick Jenkins.
Nick Jenkins, because he doesn't have enough to do either.
Oh God, yeah.
We could stick Ash on it, make her learn how to edit. Does she know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she could totally do it. These are all coworkers of ours, for everybody that doesn't know.
She's our everything girl.
Ash on to because it was like everybody needs a little bit of help, and then immediately Ash had no free time. That's how it is.
Okay.
Do you guys know if we've asked Chris Hardwick what he's up to?
Who? He now has, I think, a free 15 minutes a week now that he's not doing it anymore. So.
That's right. Well, I maybe thought he was out of our league, so maybe I didn't ask him, but I will check and make sure that. But he is obviously a very busy guy. And Ashdal's idea was like sort of like the basic booth where you go and talk. Actually, I like this also to like for PodCon. So this is basically a marketing idea for like PodCon next year, for PodCon 2018. Having other saying nice things about the event, so that we can cut that into a video about how great PodCon is, so that we can get more people to come to it and to be guests and attendees.
Yeah.
lawn. Who's got a lawnmower going?
It's not here.
Okay. All right,
in
it's
my
distracting me, but it's okay.
Is it,
yeah.
my computer's fan just turned on. I don't know if the mic is picking it up really loud or something.
Oh, yeah, it might be that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So to capture some testimonials, basically, because I always, when I'm editing promo videos, I'm like, boy, I wish I had more testimonials of people saying the things that they said to me, but
just wear a body
camera.
cam next time.
Could you speak into the flower, please?
People say nice things. Okay. Can we look at the agenda overview real quick? Because I don't think I've shown you guys that yet.
Sure.
Agenda, yes. Okay. Clicking on a Google.
Ah, it's pretty.
So many colors.
Where is it? Oh no.
It's in the email we sent you.
I sent you in an email
That could be anywhere.
a document. Okay.
It's from Monica.
It is from me.
I have seen this.
Yeah, I've also
Yes.
seen that.
So
I'm super interested in the idea of a variety show at 9:30 in the morning.
Me too.
Well,
I may not be attending that.
I view it as like a welcome kind of kickoff to the event. We
Gotcha.
originally had it in the evening, but then I thought it felt kind of weird to just start the event with a bunch of panels and podcasts without ever actually getting everyone together and being like, hello.
And anything in our company that's not a panel or a keynote is a variety show. Just
Yeah, basically.
just
Gotcha.
so you know.
And that's on Saturday?
Yes.
Yeah. Saturday. And then Sunday there's one.
9:30 on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
I mean, I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning every day now, so that seems perfectly
So
reasonable.
you can host it, Hank.
Travis, I just resent it to you. I don't know if you...
No, I got it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, now you have another email in your box.
I only play dumb.
Okay. Yeah, so we've got space for, on this schedule, 18 live podcasts. And I know we have at least that much interest based on our content interest survey that we sent out to guests. And we haven't heard from everybody yet, so I'm sure we'll get more.
Mm-hmm.
But we could
Yeah,
also use
and
some of
we-
these other rooms for it.
Yeah, some of the panel rooms can have.
Who has
And
a
then
podcast too?
our creator chats are what? Tell me what those are again, because I use that word in so many different ways.
So those are kind of like the coffee clutches that we've done for other events. It'll be like one guest or one show versus like 12 attendees who enter a lottery to get chosen to.
So it's a chance to like have like a half an hour or an hour to chat with someone super into.
Yeah. And we might actually cut these down to like 45 minutes or something. They're scheduled for an hour right now, but they don't have to be.
Yeah. Somebody just asked the question. I'm a bit confused about what will be on the actual floor of the convention center. And to clear that up, we aren't getting the entire Washington State Convention Center. So if you're thinking like, how are you going to fill up all of PAX with PodCon? It's not going to be that big. We're not going to have the whole place.
No, we've got an expo hall, a big main stage that can hold everybody, and several breakout spaces that are smaller rooms.
Yeah.
The rest of it will be taken on by a hunting and fishing show. It'll be very contentious.
I was actually looking at the convention center website yesterday and I didn't see any competitive programming in there, so we might have the building to ourselves, which would be nice.
So we'll just do laser tag and paintball in the other room.
Yeah, like Nerf gun fights.
I would love that.
Oh yeah, we used to have Nerf gun fights at VidCon. That was fun.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
In the hotel basement.
If anybody wants to put together like a Nerf war, I'd be super down with that.
Yeah.
We'll have space in the expo hall.
That
Yeah, I
reminds
think we
me,
will.
Travis, we're playing D&D, right? At some point in the PodCon?
Oh yeah. I mean, do you want to do that like in front of people or just like?
I've literally never played any sort of tabletop RPG before, so I'd maybe want a dry run before I did it in front of
Well, I thought about doing a workshop that was like D&D character creation. That has nothing to do with podcasts. I just thought it might be interesting.
Yep.
Well,
Write that down.
I went through like all 800 requests from the link that we opened up to the audiences and the attendees, and RPG and Dungeons and Dragons was very high on that list. I think it was like third behind diversity and technical workshops.
Okay.
So
I'm glad diversity made it ahead of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, me too, frankly.
It's close.
I also like that there are people like, how do you make a podcast? But also, how do you make a D&D character? Yeah, how do recordings work? And also spell books?
Yeah, I mean, the question is, how will we do our tabletop RPGing, and also do it? So will there be multiple? Obviously, I think that we need to do one-offs for like not like something that like happens throughout the event where it's like here's episode 1 and episode 2 and episode 3. But I would like for it to be a different cast of characters every time. But like the big question is who's going to DM that, because that's a lot of work, and I don't think that anybody on our sort of planning team.
You could maybe reach out directly to Chris Perkins, who works with Wizards of the Coast and has done the Wizards of the Coast podcast and DMs for the Penny Arcade game, and he is he's an amazing DM, and you can maybe get him on to just do the whole thing, and we can maybe make it like somehow podcast themed. I don't know, that's weird, but that would also be another thing that we could record and then have as a incentive for 2018 PodCon flash drive of like you can hear our whole thing from last year's event.
It definitely would be interesting to run maybe. If you're doing games in front of a crowd, do like maybe 3 with just 3 entirely different groups of podcasters playing.
There's also so many different formats. You wouldn't have to just do D&D every time. There's a lot of different, like also one-off games that are specifically set up for, I mean, like you could play Betrayal at House on the Hill and more or less accomplish a storyline in one go without having to have someone write the entire thing.
I love that game.
And there's a lot of games like that where it's like there's a lot of loose play in it so that you can create characters and story, but the story already exists on paper, so nobody has to like write it. I mean, same deal. That's true with D&D too. There's all kinds of pre-scripted campaigns we could use so that no one would be on the hook to create different stories for the adventures.
Yeah, I think that Chris Pramus lives in Seattle, Washington, too, who is the guy who developed the role I did on my my show that I did with Will Wheaton. So we could maybe reach out to him as well and do a Titan's Grave one, not with the original cast. To be clear, it's going to happen because that would not be the thing that's happening, and I had no people. Let people think that.
Well, now that you've told people not to do that, they're going to do it just to spite you, Hank.
That doesn't seem like this particular group of 150 people.
Okay. All right. Okay.
But yeah, I definitely think that there should be, weirdly enough, lots of D&D at this convention.
It back to a thematic thing, I have seen a rise both just anecdotally, I've seen it, and also people like pitching stuff to me and reaching out to Max Fun about it, of like real play podcasts. It's not just because of the Adventure Zone, but Adventure Zone's part of it, and like Critical Role, the acquisitions. It's seen a definite rise. And I definitely think it's something that people are interested in.
Yeah, and it's like it really makes D&D more fun to imagine that there is a larger audience out there. You know, in sort of maybe like a way that it shouldn't. Like maybe I shouldn't feel that way, but I do. Like I try harder when I think that there's people watching.
Angela Weber of the Double Clicks, I believe, has a podcast where they play Fiasco. That could be another one-off game if we wanted to have her come up and play some Fiasco on stage.
Cool.
Well, we're just about out of budget for bringing in more people.
But Angela's from Seattle, right? Or is it Portland? From one of those two places. I know she's Pacific Northwest.
I think she's actually in LA now.
Oh, did she move? That's not cool.
I think she might have, but
everybody goes to LA.
No.
But it's the podcast is her and guests, so
right.
It might just be her if we wanted to bring. But you know, that's I understand budget is a concern. So just something I thought of. As long as we talk about people to run the games, that could be a good one-off game if we wanted to play it.
I'm pretty confident that Seattle has some pretty awesome DMs hanging around.
Definitely true.
Somebody on the chat wants to know if there's good coffee near the convention center. It's Seattle.
There's probably good coffee in the closets of the convention center.
I actually specifically recommend there's just like a block away from the convention center, there's a place that is literally just a window. It has no store at all. It's called Monorail, I think, but it's just like a window that hands you amazing espresso.
Whether you want it or not, like you just walk by.
You just walk by
shove
and
it in
throw
your
it at
chest.
you.
Ben asked if there's going to be any cosplaying happening. I hope so. I don't know how to encourage that, but I want it to be a thing.
I mean, we could have a cosplay event. I mean, very
Can we get like
easily.
mashup cosplay?
Yeah.
Can we get like a glow taco?
Ooh, maybe.
I like that.
We're doing the Adventure Zone the night before in Tacoma.
I know, you guys sold out. Like, I was in the middle of recording something, and then I looked and I was like, oh, tickets are gone.
For whatever reason, every venue in Seattle was booked out that day, so we're in Tacoma. But so I imagine there will be a lot of overlap with the convention in that, so we may be able to encourage like a Night Vale, a Night Vale Adventure Zone, whatever.
Yeah.
Cosplay event.
What's the venue in Tacoma that you're
A
at?
lot of Night Vale cosplay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a Pantages, but I'm not sure. I should know that though, right?
So it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, Pantages Theater, Tacoma.
Cool.
Just go stand outside and put your
think
hand
I've
on the
been there.
wall and imagine the show happening inside.
You can listen to the stage door like in Jukebox Hero.
Where was my brain? I lost it.
Oh.
Where's my mind? People were also talking about technical workshops. I'm curious. So like, somebody was suggesting like what about just having somebody edit their podcast in front of people?
That
Maybe an interesting thing to do, because then you see like, oh, like all the tiny decisions that you wouldn't even talk about. And like how boring would it be to watch Travis McElroy edit a podcast?
Oh, very boring. A lot of me zoning off in the distance as I listen for 30 words. I think that you might accomplish the same thing by having someone pre-record and edit their screen. So like you could say like, this is an example of why I did this thing. Like if you could get Griffin to do like a example edit of an Adventure Zone, because he puts a ton of work into it. But rather than sit there and watch his entire 8-hour process, you would just see him like do specific things and go over why he, just as an example. I'm not saying Griffin will do this, but
Yeah.
you know, because I think that there is a lot of art to editing as far as like, do you cut out all the ums? Do you leave some in so it still sounds natural? How tight do you want to make the all that stuff, along with what to edit for? But I think maybe Roman Mars would be a good choice for that too.
Surprisingly too, or maybe not surprisingly, that a lot of people were asking for like setups, like what do you use, what kind of microphones do you use, what's the, you know, the actual setup of you know, different people's podcasts.
Yeah, I thought about that. My only concern would be it's so different for everybody. Like I you know, everybody has a different microphone that they prefer because it's almost like, well, for me, there's you know, like I have a microphone I use not because it's technically the best, but just because for whatever reason to my ear it sounds the best, and that might be hard to convey to an audience of people.
I mean, Night Vale is still just like, we're firm believers in that you don't really need much to podcast, so we still record on a cheap USB microphone in Cecil's apartment on his laptop, the same way we did with episode 1.
And then there's me, who went a little bit bonkers for microphones, and now I own 15 different microphones as I strive to continually find the best, which is mostly driven by a brotherly competition, as Griffin and Justin do the same. Constantly texting each other like, check out this new cat I got. Oh, and then we gotta go buy a new one.
I mean, at least you know stuff about mics now, though.
Yeah, here's the mic I'm using now. It's a voiceover mic.
Hello, Sarah has an idea. What if we just had a page about tech specs for each of the 42 guests in the booklet? I'm assuming she means the conference guide, which I think makes sense.
Yeah, you just have people like, what do you edit with and what do you record on? Yeah. Basically.
Yeah. It's a great idea.
I mean, I love making people mad when I tell them Audacity, so I'm happy to do that.
Well, I record on Reaper, but I edit on Audacity.
Yeah, I feel like there was a whole 99% Invisible episode about microphones and the sound of recording in different spaces, and I think having something like that could really work if you had either a video or audio edit to use as like a lecture demonstration style for that. Also, like little tips and tricks. I remember actually a year or so ago, Joseph, when I started editing my first podcast for Within the Wires, Joseph taught me about getting rid of the popping P sounds from the microphone as well in audio editing. And there's a lot of neat little things like that that I feel like we could probably put together.
I have a little thing I use. I got turned onto this by a YouTube channel all about voiceover work, and it's a dog trainer clicker. And you click it where you have an edit, because as you look down the audio file, you can see this like sudden like 8 spikes in a row, and you're like, oh, there's an edit point right there. It's great when you remember to use it. I'm not quite efficient enough to not still have to comb through the whole recording, but
or when you forget to find those.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I don't know about. I just do this.
Oh,
so
I was
we're available.
I was just in North Carolina recording my new show with John Darnielle, and I brought down my like fancy pop filter I inherited from my dad, and he didn't have another one, so he just took a sock out of the laundry and stuck it over his mic, and that seemed to work fine. So there's just a neat tip: just forget a pop filter, just stick a sock over your mic.
That's pretty great.
Use what you have.
I also think audience engagement would be a very interesting topic for a class. Social media, all of that kind of stuff. That would be interesting. Also, just like assets, like logo design, music, that kind of stuff. I think I think that's in pre-production and post-production, though, if we wanted to do a whole class on that.
I mean, we're gonna have John Bernstein, who composes the music for both Night Vale and Alice Isn't Dead there, who I think would have a lot to say about, for instance, writing music for podcasting.
Yeah, Griffin does the music for Taz if we wanted to do like a panel or something.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of anything else interesting about my job that people might want to hear about. What kind of sleep pants I wear while I'm recording.
Yeah, you could say so. Your editing software, your microphone, and what kind of sleep pants?
Well, it depends what time of the year it is. If it's summer, I've got some shorts. They're sleep pants shorts, though. They're very comfortable. Now, in the winter, you're gonna want your fuzzy flannels.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I can't work in sleep pants.
Really?
Can't do it. I feel like too much of a slob. I have to put on jeans every morning, or else I feel like I'm useless.
Sometimes it hits 8 p.m. and I think, oh, well, oh, no, too late now.
I mean, I've done a number of podcasting work in my robe, so you all are a step ahead.
I'm either in sleep pants or tux. I don't have anywhere in between.
So there's obviously sleep pants going on right now then.
Oh, yeah, I'm in my sleep shorts. It's the summer.
I am too, not gonna lie.
I actually was just about to hop on the treadmill before I remembered this. So here I am.
Is there sort of a difference between like audience development, like more audience development that's like, what can you get your audience to do to make your audience bigger, and how do you make them want to do that? Like, how do you say on iTunes, because it actually helps in a way that actually will get people to do that? Or how do you get people to tweet about your podcast? Like, because like building audience from existing audience is a lot of times the only way you have to do it.
I think that they are different enough topics, but I also think that they are so inextricably linked that I don't know that you could do two separate talks about them without a lot of overlap. Because I have found at least the answer is always engagement in both ends. So like the more you engage with them as far as like, hey, we need this from you. This is like, we need you. And as much as you can get them engaged with you, gets them engaged with other. But like, so I think yes, but I think it's two overlapping circles in a Venn diagram.
Yeah, well, so maybe just make a note that that's something definitely a topic that we would want to have come up in that panel. Paul suggested official PodCon sleep pants, and I can tell you, as somebody who has tried to manufacture sleep pants, it's surprisingly hard.
Oh, really? Because I already put that idea down because I like this so much.
What you can do is you can get like existing patterned sleep pants and like get them embroidered or screen printed, but it is very hard. We could get sweatpants. We could totally do sweatpants, but it's very hard to get like custom patterned sleep pants done. And the one time we did it, it was the quality that I would want people to do again.
What if we just got sweatpants but with PodCon across the butt?
Perfect.
We could definitely do that.
I like that.
I mean, Night Vale, we made sleep pants that said creepy on the butt. So I can tell you that butt sleep pants are very, very makeable.
Yeah. PodCon on the butt.
On the butt. Oh, and it literally says PodCon on the butt.
And of course, we definitely need to have conversations about sponsorship and how that functions, and we'll have some people there that are like industry people of various sorts that aren't necessarily in front of the scenes, who are like working on how technologically that might change in the future. And we've started to see for the first time advertisements in podcasting or advertisements that can swap out, where you take all of your ads out and put new ads in, which is amazing that it is of course, in online video, that's been how it has been for the whole time. You might not get a pre-roll, and if you do get a pre-roll, it's not going to be the same one every time. Change, I think, is an interesting one that I don't know whether to be terrified of it or bullish about it. But then also just like how do podcast sponsorships work? Are they, and will there be enough blue aprons in the world to keep pitching things that we like to our audiences?
I think in general, too, and I don't know how interesting this is as a topic to anyone other than me, but like the different forms of like monetization, and which one is appropriate for what kind of show. Because you have like, you know, your Kickstarters, your Patreons, but also like donor setup like Max Fun has, or advertising setup, merch. There's a lot of different ways that you could potentially make money from your podcast, and not everyone is right for every show.
I think that's very interesting, and we should definitely talk about that. I think that our audience is going to want to know about that.
I will say, so I think there's a danger with podcast events. They tend to slip into being primarily about the tech of podcasting and about monetization of podcasting. It just becomes what the entire thing is about, and I would love to really steer away from that hard. So if we could contain, you know, having a panel or whatever, but I would love this to be primarily about podcasting as a creative endeavor. So like if the behind the scenes stuff, rather than being about what microphone you use, but more about how you think about the content and how you write for or structure podcasting in your head, and how you perform for it. I just don't want to go down the rabbit hole of having it end up being mostly about here's how you make money.
Yeah.
That's sort of the easy way to approach it. And like when it's like, okay, we're gonna have a panel, what are we gonna have it be about? It's a lot easier to say like let's talk about our audio setups. And it's often what people are sort of asking for, whereas the creative part of it is more abstract, but I think also more interesting. Harder.
I also think though that like say for like VidCon, you know, we do like YouTube 101, but if we did like Podcast 101 as a workshop, that would almost, you know, that would kind of cover it, and I don't think that would be kind of overkill. I think that could kind of serve the purpose of that.
I also think there's a gap between what people think they want and what they actually want.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if they want to know how to make a podcast, they think what they think they want is to know what the technical setup needs to be and how to be really good at audio editing. But as somebody who created a podcast that has turned out pretty successful using a very cheap microphone and self-teaching as I went in a free audio editing program, like those things are not actually that important. It's a lot more, the thing you actually need to know in order to make a podcast is a lot more about like the creative structure and how you're thinking about the format and how you're thinking about what you're leaving in and what you're taking out. It's a lot more of the non-technical work that ends up making it worth listening to or not.
Yeah, though I will also say that I think also more important than your technical setup is it's not just how you understand the content, but how you understand how people are going to engage with it and connect with it, and then like to get more people listening to it, because I think that's always going to be people's goal, because you can't monetize a podcast that doesn't have an audience, and you can't, and you also don't feel like it's as valuable if it doesn't have, like, that's just sort of how it works. Like the more people you have watching, the more you are filling the unfillable hole of being a creative person, trying to get people who like you and your things. So I think that like I again while I want to have conversations about like specifically like the art of editing, I also want to have conversations about the art of, for lack of a better word, marketing, but probably more the better word is audience development, and community building, which is really what it is. Because if you're building an audience, like we're not having a ton of podcasts that are out to like do the audience building thing, and I kind of wanted to talk about that, but now we don't have time to talk about it. So maybe it's a topic for next time we do this. But the kinds of podcasts that are informative, but maybe don't have like a super like the kind of dedicated audiences that I think I'm more interested in, and I'm more interested in as like a PodCon leader person. So like not just about how do you get people watching, but how do you get people caring, and all the people that we've invited really are like, that's what they do.
All right, 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
think we covered a lot.
There are lots of good things have happened in the chat in the last as well. There was some discussion about splitting things into tracks where you have like a technical track and a more creative track. I don't know. Like I think that it will be clear enough to people what the panels and workshops are without having to differentiate it that way. It might make it a little easier when you're going through the book. But also, like, is there really a difference between like the technical skill of editing and the of editing? Like, I feel like it's pretty much the same thing.
I disagree strongly.
Okay.
I think a lot of editing is knowing what you want the show to be and
knowing what story you want to tell.
Yeah, it happens in your head long before you start fucking around with the audio itself.
Okay. Somebody asked on the chat or commented on the chat a little bit ago about talking about the creative panels and things like that. Talked about the difference between storytelling and audio versus writing, and that's something that Joseph and I talk about a lot in creating stories for podcasts, which is knowing your medium of how something being written on the page, whether it's going to be read in a book or performed on a stage or listened to in earphones versus in a car. And I think those are all really important components of the technical side, but also very creative too. You know, the number of times we have to pace around the living room reading a Night Vale script to yourself out loud to know how it sounds and how that's paced. And I think in the actual editing process, that becomes a really creative endeavor because you want to know your pacing and you want to know those other elements of what breaths do you want to keep in. Also, like, how much can you space this out? What is the listening experience like? It's podcasting is such an intimate medium because literally the earbuds are in your ears. That is where the person talking to you is. And I think finding those areas would be really fascinating too, of how to directly relate to your listener.
Yeah, and the thing that came up in my mind as you were saying that was a picture of the three, like you and Joseph and Cecil, sitting in a room recording the first episode of Night Vale. And like how that collaboration came together, because I think that's a really interesting thought. Like all of us, and I think a lot of the most successful podcasters, like not doing it on their own. How do you have a successful and lasting collaboration between creative partners? And if that's not stable, then neither is your enterprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeffrey and I could have talked before about like the fact that you go from people doing a hobby to basically podcast married, where you know your lives are bound together and you talk constantly.
Yeah.
Podcast married. I like that.
All right. Well, we have to release our people to their respective things, but we will be doing this multiple times in the future, and I think that it was both productive and fun. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, y'all.
You're welcome. Oh wait, thank you.
The man who was late.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Sorry we couldn't answer every question, but we'll endeavor to next time. Goodbye.